During the 90s and 2000s, the comic industry kind of collapsed. And a lot of people put this up for a bunch of different reasons, but it all pretty much came down to they started putting their money too much into premium, like fancy covers and all this kind of stuff, and it led to a bad marketing strategy. And then they went into animation. The animation didn't have the buyback they thought it would, so pretty much the whole industry collapsed because of all these different reasons. But that's long story short. This is how Disney owned Marvel and all this stuff. But during the 90s and that time frame, there was a comic that no one talked about that was a massive hidden gem. It was phenomenal. And it ended up being this right here, Bloodshot by Valiant. So Bloodshot was a comic about a guy who was an assassin. Okay, and he was like a pretty interesting anti-assassin. So Valiant back in the 90s was a third-party company, because you know the big two, Marvel and DC, but not everyone knows all the random ones that were competing with them. So you eventually got Image out of the Todd McFarlane scenario with Venom and all of that. But besides Image, we had companies like Valiant, we had E-Press, we had all these different places, and Valiant eventually ended up getting swallowed up by Marvel. But Bloodshot was the most interesting character that they made, and he's easily recognizable because he was all white with the Japanese golden sun like icon right on his chest, and it was a pretty dark comic. It was a very dark comic. You can see someone getting shot in the head on the cover, and it's like they cost $2 something during the time frame, which is outrageous for a 90s comic. But it was worth every penny. Bloodshot was a really phenomenal comic, and the artwork was pretty much on par with the cover. So a lot of people notice about me, but I can't stand certain things. And it is when you get duped by a cover and come to find out it is nowhere near as good as anything else inside the comic. And it's pretty notorious for what they used to do back in the day. But Bloodshot's cover was almost always in the same actual style of the comic. So it's like you never really felt like you were getting ripped off, in a sense. And it was really nice to see the art style bleed over into the actual comic, because that doesn't happen too often. So this comic was very mature. It was mostly for adults. It was about a cold hard killer who had amnesia before this became like the fad, and he's discovering his past. Okay, that's literally the gist of it. But the difference is that there is nothing to redeem here. Like, he's not trying to redeem himself. He's just trying to figure out where he lives. Like, it's that. And he's really good at what he does. So it's really interesting to see that this comic was not really talked about. Like, a lot of people didn't really talk about this comic, even though it's a phenomenal comic. And it just shows that a lot of Americans won't stray away from Marvel and DC no matter what. Like, it's like if they don't have like their two things, they don't want to experiment. And it's a shame because Bloodshot failed because of that. Well, the company failed because of that. But Bloodshot as a comic was an amazing IP. Now, when it was bought out by Marvel, it is the only thing from Valiant that I'm aware of that they pretty much kept around. So now you can buy Bloodshot comics, but it's not the same. It's not the same artist. It's not the same style. And it has like a different vibe to it. You can tell they're trying to figure out how they want to do this. But it's still nice that the IP survived all that chaos. And you can still find some of the modern stuff, but the old ones are classic. If you ever see these in a dollar bin or anything at any comic store that you ever go to, I would 100% recommend it. Just pick them up, read them, see if you like it. because they're always going to be cheap. They're always in the cheap bins now. And I would 100% go with that. There's no bound collections that I'm aware of. There's no cartoon that I'm aware of. It's just a nice, dark, gritty comic that no one talks about called Bloodshot. 100% I recommend it.